Perfect.
When we all start wedging, it's just gonna
Okay, so we are gonna work on making some coil built mugs, and there are a couple different ways with how you can get them started. I actually like to start out with kind of a pinch pot bottom for it. So what I do is I get a piece of clay and I keep it pretty flat to start out with, rather than kind of even like the ball shape, because I just want it to be pretty flat, like a very low dish, and that's what I'm gonna start my coils around. And I could probably even use less than this. And you guys might want to also go off of, if you have your sketchbooks, looking at like your shapes again, to kind of think about, you know, what were the mug shapes that you really liked, or you can kind of draw out your own. I'm going to get started here, and I'm just going to make kind of like a low shape here. Smoothing out any cracks. And you can use a banding wheel for the coils, just because it makes it a little bit easier, but if you don't have a banding wheel, that's okay too. We'll get them out in a second for you. So I'm just kind of shaping, keeping it pretty low. I might grab a fettling knife in a second to kind of get off any excess. Just want it to be nice and smooth, but also, you know, kind of remembering we can smooth out some little things later as the clay gets a little bit hard and we're working on it a little bit more. So I'm just trying to get this a little bit wider. And then I might grab my fettling knife or my needle tool and I can kind of even it out now. Might get like my lowest point or areas where it's kind of cracking. Oh, do your glasses always fog up with the mask
Not
on?
really.
You've got a good mask where then your breath isn't like coming up.
It's like a little high, so like my glasses don't really like fog up.
Yeah. I know you've got it situated nicely too. It's hard to. That's my pet peeve. Last semester, I feel like people would say hi to me, and I either couldn't see them because I didn't even have my glasses on, or my glasses were just really fogged up.
Some masks like make it difficult, but I found one that works.
Yeah, I know. I definitely have my favorites, but I need to wash them. My sister-in-law actually made them. They are so nice. But not today. So I'm always taking off my glasses. So I kind of want this nice thick wall here because I'm going to be adding some coils onto it. If it's not super pretty, that's okay. I'm kind of just wanting to get this nice circular bottom area, and just knowing that if I don't love the shape down here, if there are some little cracks, then I can do just like what we did last time with the pinch pots. Once it's leather hard, I can kind of trim these with the rasp, or kind of use the paddles to shape them a little bit, but it's a good starting point. Okay, so I have like my little dish here, and It has these little crumbles here, but I'm gonna be slipping and scoring, so I don't need it to be smooth. It's gonna get scrapey here soon in a second, so I'm not too worried about it. So I'm gonna get some clay and I'm gonna roll out some coils. You could even do this ahead of time too, just so they're a little bit stiffer. You don't want them to be too super stiff, but something that I think people run into some trouble with is when they're trying to get too high with it, when their pieces are pretty wet. And so sometimes we just need to take a break or take a second and let our pieces dry before adding some more. So we don't, that's also why we don't want to be adding like a ton of moisture, because if it's like sopping wet, then it's sometimes hard. So I'm going to move these really quick so you guys can see. With the coils, so I kind of have this cylinder shape. If it's too dry, sometimes they kind of like hollow out and are funky. So I do need the coils to have kind of like a good moisture. And I go all the way around with my hand, and then when it kind of gets long enough, I kind of go back and forth with it. When it starts to get, I'm gonna get just a little bit of water here, because they start to crack a little bit, and sometimes that just makes it hard. Then they can sometimes fall apart. So sometimes I'll just put some water on it to keep it nice and flexible and not crack on me. And then I can use 2 hands and just gradually start spreading out my hands. And this is looking good, but I could even just split this, because sometimes it's a little bit too much to deal with. So by going kind of back and forth with my hand, I can create a longer coil. It's getting a little cracky, so I'm just gonna run my finger along here. I don't want it to be sopping wet, because then it'll stick to the table. So everything in moderation. All right. And then I can see if it doesn't go all the way around, that's okay. I can always use 2 coils. This is actually perfect. Wow. Okay, so that's great. I know it's gonna fit and I love it. I'm gonna grab, so because these are kind of on the harder side of leather hard, our coils are. If these were like really super moist, we maybe wouldn't have to slip and score, but we want to make sure that we are when pieces are leather hard. So I am getting the bottom of my mug wet, and then I'm getting my needle tool, just like how we were scoring for our handles. We want to be scoring. Teresa, can you look in that gray tote and see if we have the spiky metal ribs in there? Yeah, can you just throw me one? Thank you. So that can also be nice. You can give that a try. and it makes it go a little bit quicker. At home I have a trimming tool that has just like a row of these so that I can just do that and it goes by a lot quicker. But I just want to make sure that it's deep enough so that everything is going to stick. So I do that to both things that I'm going to attach. Sorry, I'm putting down water on my coil. I can take my needle tool to score it. I'm even going to get this a little bit wet, and I can score my coil. And I go in multiple directions so that it kind of builds up a slurry. And then I'm going to kind of dry my hands. And I'm going to press down. You can kind of see some of the slip oozing out, which is good. Kind of works like glue. And if there's a part right here that's going to overlap, I can kind of just tear it or kind of mix them together. We can kind of even things out as we go. So I can do that with my finger. So you guys can probably see on the outside, it you can still see how it's separated. So I really want to push it down. And I can kind of work these two pieces together either with my hands or with my longer wooden tool. Here. This is also really helpful for getting the inside, especially when your piece starts to get taller and you can't get your fingers in there. But that's why you want to be working as you go. I'm using this end to kind of push the clay together so that it becomes one piece. So I'm doing the inside first. So I've got the inside, I can kind of smooth it.
Where do you want this towel at?
You can just throw it on the table somewhere there and I'll wash them over the weekend.
Thank you.
Uh-huh. Okay, so I've smoothed it out on the inside, and just like your pinch pots, we don't want the walls to be super thick, so I can even kind of pinch them and kind of thin it out a little bit. And I also want to smooth it out on the exterior here. So I can use my wooden tool to, oh, it's feeling really moist. To connect the coils together. So I might, periodically use my fingers or use my tool. And then I can also be smoothing out with my rib as I'm starting to build these up as well. But it does get a little bit moist. So just timing kind of when you're, like, you wouldn't necessarily want to make all of your coils at once because you kind of want a little bit of a period of time to dry in between when you're putting your coils on. And if it's not perfectly smoothed out right now, that's okay, because we know we can kind of continue to smooth out those areas in the future. So I'm just going to continue making coils, and then slipping and scoring and building them up until I have them as tall or as wide as I want them. Do you guys have any questions about what we're gonna work on?
So do you not want to like be able to see the coils?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
I don't for mine, or if you're wanting to see the coils, that's something that you could do, but you still want to connect it on the inside and be able to clean it up in some way.
Okay.
Because some people do like being able to see the coils, and that's okay. But a lot of people coil build mugs or any vessels, and they're able to kind of like achieve, you know, the same form, but it's completely smoothed out.
Okay.
So if you want your coils to be visible, I'm okay with that if that's like a conscientious design choice that you're making. But you still need to really smooth them out on the inside so that they're connected.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay,
Is the
cool.
point of just smoothing them out like that and coil building in general, just so that you could make something like taller?
Uh-huh.
I guess. That you
Yep,
put down at
it
the bottom?
builds up like a little bit at a time.
Yeah.
Because if
Okay.
you got like a huge chunk of clay, you can, some people do slabs. There are all sorts of different techniques, but if you're using like a big coil, it just becomes a little bit unwieldy. So you just do a little bit at a time, kind of build up your pieces. So it is time consuming, but it's but you can get some really interesting shapes from it. Are there any other questions, guys? Okay, if you guys want to fill up a couple of the red buckets of